Well, hello there, everyone. Hopefully, you're having a tremendous Thursday. Today is January the 5th, year 2023. Yes, we're now getting entrenched in 2023. Anyway, you've heard horror stories about investing, right? You probably have. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about horror stories of my investing life, but how it's still better than doing nothing. And with that being said, I am Mazske Finance. I'm not a CPA, I'm not an attorney, I'm not a financial advisor. All I'm trying to do is share my stories, my experiences, my past adventures, my past failures, current failures, future successes, all that stuff, and all in hopes of making you a better investor yourself and so you can have a better quality of life. Just a better quality of life. That's all I'm trying to do. I do not edit my videos for the most part. I just say things. I might write notes down at different times. I study topics, but I'm just winging it. So there are times I may misspeak. I may trip over words. I may cough. I may stumble. I may do something. That's just me. It's Mazske. If you don't like it, unsubscribe. But I will try to do my best to help you out. All right. So that being said, some horror stories of investing. I started investing in mutual funds back in 1990 as a young guy, 22, 23 years old, right around there. Didn't know what I was doing. I was just buying a couple mutual funds. As the 90s went on, I think I sold one or two, kept and bought another one, or whatever I did. I can kind of remember I had the Kaufman Fund, the Scudder International Fund, Janus funds. I had one or two funds with Janus. They were all big mutual companies back in the day. I haven't checked. Are they still in business? Scudder, Kaufman, Janus. That's three companies I know I invested in, mutual funds. 1999, I found a website called The Motley Fool. I read for the first time then how the little guy, the guy without much money, could buy individual stocks. It opened my eyes. Mazske, the little guy, could buy individual stocks. I sold my mutual funds and opened up online discount brokerage accounts and started buying individual stocks. This was in 1999. What happened in 2000, 2001-ish, around that time period? It's what's called the dot-com crash. It was followed right after the crash. That general time period, 9/11 occurred. That shook the markets, traumatized the markets. All right. So when the stocks dropped, they dropped. I had one stock I owned drop 90%. 90%. If I bought it for $100, it was now worth 10. Dropped 90%. Other stocks dropped. Good companies, good successful companies dropped 50, 60, 70%. Good companies. One of those companies I bought that had a huge drop was Amazon. I sold those shares in Amazon sometime after that, not right away. I sold 2003, 2004, I don't remember what year, somewhere in there, 2003, 4. And I bought more shares in 2009, I think it was. And if I had kept those shares from 1999, I'd have a lot more money. That's all I'll say. I would have a lot more money. Okay. So, but anyway, back in the day, early 2000s, I was a pretty new police officer. I had sent out some emails about investing. Unbeknownst to me, the deputy chief, the number 2 guy in the police department, had tried his hand at buying some stocks. He never told me until after the fact. And he talked to me one day, and it was, I don't know what year it was, 2002, 2003, and he told me, based on my emails, he had decided to buy some stocks. My glasses seem like they keep slipping. So he told me he had decided to buy some stocks. And when the markets crashed, he sold. He lost a couple $1,000s. It wasn't like a huge sum of money, but he lost a couple $1,000s. He told me he was done with buying stocks. Okay. To my knowledge, he retired several years before I retired. Number 2 guy in the police department. So he had moved up. Means he made a lot more money. He retired, got a good pension. Went and took another job full time with another department. To my knowledge, he might have retired since I moved down here, but when I was still in Virginia, to my knowledge, he was still working there. He's older than I am. He should have kept investing. All right, so moving on. I bought my first rental house in January 2017. I didn't know what I was doing. I just jumped into it. I still own that house. It's a good rental house, but I didn't know what I was doing. And when I got my first tenant, Within 2 months or so, she stopped paying rent. I served her the pay or quit notice. Like after 5 or 6 days, I served that paperwork on her. I filed the unlawful detainer with the sheriff's department and the court system. I went to court. I talked to the judge. The judge ruled in my favor, gave her 10 more days to get out. I had to wait those 10 days for her to get out. I then had to go to the sheriff's department, pay another fee, file something else, so they could serve her like 24-hour notice, but they were backlogged. They said it would take about 2 more weeks. And then I was there when they went to the house. I was there when they told the tenant. They knew her by name. That wasn't a good sign. They knew her by name. They've dealt with her before. And they gave her 24 hours to get out. And I told her, this was like 9 o'clock in the morning. I told her I'll be back at 7 o'clock in the morning because you're not allowed to spend the night on the property. You can clean your stuff out. She told me she had help coming. When I went back at 6:30ish, 7ish, almost nothing had been done in the house. It was her and her kids, and almost nothing had been done. Nothing was moved. And she told me her help didn't show up. And she was like, I'm just going to work all night. And I said, no, you're not. You're not allowed to spend the night in the house. And she said, well, I'm going to sleep in the driveway. And I said, no, you're not. You're not allowed. Did you hear the deputy this morning? You're not allowed to stay on the property. And she was standing in front of me down on the ground, and I watched her clench her fist up. And I was like, don't even do it. Don't do it. And she like clenched up, and then she yelled for her kids, and she left. I told her, I said, I'm changing the lock on one door. I'll leave the other door where you can get in. You got until 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. I went back at 9 o'clock the next day, not knowing what I would find. And lo and behold, the house was empty. Okay? That was good. I took a crash course in screening tenants and doing this and that. And the wife and I, we vacuumed the house. We scrubbed toilets. We got it clean. We did all that kind of stuff. And then we got a decent family. I stayed there a year. They moved out. Got a tenant in there now. She's been there since, that would have been in 2017, 2018. She moved in 2018. She's still there. She told me she wants to stay another probably 3-4 years or so. All right. So I learned from it. Moving on from that, I had a borough project in Alabama that was a completely successful. I got a free house, but it was kind of like, and what I don't really talk about too much, even though it was my free house because it was successful, back-to-back tenants were both bad tenants. I had different property managers. They could not get them out. They could not get rent. They get a little bit of rent then, but that means the eviction process will stop because they would accept the rent. The first tenant finally got out, owing me thousands of dollars. The second tenant finally got out, owing me thousands of dollars. I've not collected a cent. That house is now sold. All right. I had another house in Alabama. Tenant moved out recently. She had been there from the day I bought it till just recently. She left it trashed. She left a huge pile of trash on the street, in the yard, but out by the street. She left it just trashed, floor scratched up, wall scratched up, damaged, a lot of little things. Light fixtures broken. Property managers never did an inspection, even though I would tell them it was a requirement. They're supposed to. They never did. So I got all my rent money, and she forfeited her deposit, but I spent, I think, $13,000. I'm still getting it finished. It's going to go on the market here soon. All right. Moving on from that, I had a house in Chicago. Bought it last February. It's now January. It needed to be rehabbed. I'm not going to get into the reasons why, but it's still not finished. All right. I'm selling that house. I have a house in Indiana. I bought it last March. It had to be rehabbed. I paid cash for this house. Same for that house in Chicago. I paid cash for it. When you have a house, you got holding costs. You got to pay heat, water, gas, perhaps if you got all three. You got to cut the grass. You got holding costs. So I paid that cost for the house in Chicago. In Gary, Indiana, where the tenant moved in. I've talked about it. I got $1,250 in rent. That's good. They paid for 2 months. First 2 months, I only got $899.56 because I didn't know this, but there were still some bills that came in that were due from the rehab the property manager had to take their 50% cut from the first month, and that's what I got, and then they stopped paying. Property manager had to evict them. I had to pay $550 for an attorney and a little bit more of something else. Then we get a HUD tenant lined up. HUD tenant has an approved voucher. When you get a HUD tenant lined up and got the voucher, HUD has to come out and do an inspection on the house. We found that tenant in November, so we stopped advertising it. December came and went. January's here. The property manager has been trying to contact the HUD department. The tenant's been allegedly trying to contact the HUD department. I have emailed 4 or 5 emails. I have called and left 4 or 5 messages. No response. What am I going to do? I'm still trying to figure it out. So with all that being said, I don't want to scare you off. Because no matter if you're a stock investor, no matter if you've invested in crypto, no matter if you've invested in real estate, you probably have your own horror stories that you can talk about. But what I'm here today to tell you, the one message I want you to remember, okay? No matter what you've heard me say before, what I want you to remember is that investing can and does pay off. You will have your failures. You will have bad things happen. You will lose money. I've been scammed by a plumber. I lost $5,000. I was scammed by a plumber up in Virginia. Bad things will happen. But if you stick with it, if you persevere, if you have that grit, that oomph to keep on plugging along, things will get better. And yes, you are going to have more hiccups along the way. It's going to happen, especially in real estate, especially in stocks, especially in index funds and ETFs, especially in crypto, especially in oil, art, wine. No matter what you invest in, the day will come and you will have hiccups. You will have the value of something drop. What are you going to do? Are you going to learn from it and ride it out and adapt and overcome? Or are you going to give up, quit, wash your hands, walk away, saying, I'm done. I'm not going to invest in real estate no more. I'm not going to invest in stocks no more. I'm not going to invest in this no more. Are you done? If you give up and quit, think about people that work jobs. The majority never invest. They work all their life. When they retire, they have their pension, or they have Social Security, or maybe they have nothing. Okay, maybe they keep working into their 70s, and they're 75, and they die because of their health. They retire because of their health, and then they end up dying because they're struggling. Okay, so many people do that. All right, those who start investing, if you invest just in an S&P 500 index fund, you've heard me say I think it's going to flatline for a while. Even if it does flatline, if you stick it out and you don't want to buy real estate because you're scared of the tenants in the toilets, you don't want to invest in something else, and you just stick with that, even if it never goes up, as long as you methodically put money in every single month, as long as it doesn't just go down for the 20 years, if it flatlines for 20 years, well, you've saved X number of dollars a month. After 20 years, you have a pot of money. Maybe it didn't grow as much as you want. Maybe it didn't grow at all, but you got a pot of money. If you buy a rental house and you buy 4, and money's tight because your tenants aren't paying, and you got to keep paying those mortgages, and you got to pay the taxes, and you got to pay the insurance. And let's say you always have bad luck for 30 years. You just have bad luck. And you don't make any money, but you were 30 years old when you bought the houses. Now you're 60 years old. The houses are paid off. You don't have a mortgage. So maybe you sell all 4. Each one's worth $150,000, $200,000. You sell all 4. You got a chunk of money. All right. Now odds are you're not going to go 30 years and never get a cent in. That's not going to happen. But I want you to hopefully understand, sometimes I'm not the best at articulating my thoughts, or what I think up here is not what comes out here. All right. So just try to understand the point of what I'm saying is you got to start investing. You got to stick with it. Times are going to get rough at times with all forms of investing. Nothing is perfect. Nothing. Nothing in life is perfect. All right. You have to adapt and overcome. That's all you can do. That's all you can do. All right. So with that being said, I am reading a fascinating book. Absolutely fascinating. Once I'm fully done it and complete reading it, I will give a book review on my channel. And that might be later this week. I may not do it immediately. I've got to think about what I read and everything. But I'll give you a book review and let you know what the book is. All right, so with that being said, have a great day. Mazke's signing out.